are present. Mayor is zooming, and so we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. All stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda and work session is the presentation from the Fire Relief Committee.
Mr. Vice Mayor and Mayor, if before we jump to the Fire Relief Committee, I'd like to remove item number 6, and we'll discuss that at a future meeting.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
6 is scratched. Okay, presentation.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members, tonight the committee put together by the Relief Association is here to discuss fire pension plan, wishes they have. They don't see Chad on Zoom.
He is, he's just doesn't have his video on.
Okay, so we have Chad Heitschmidt, firefighter Chad Heitschmidt, who's gonna be making a presentation on Zoom. In the council chambers, we have Captain Troy Thompson, Captain Jason Bonnet, Captain Adam Cook, firefighter Jay Stewart, firefighter Chris Wilkie, and firefighter Jim Langfeld. Here on behalf of the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Chad, this is where you talk.
All right. Hi, this is Chad Heitschmidt, Princeton Fire Relief Association. So I will share my screen. I think you all kind of got this. Yeah. So we, as a committee, we're working on coming up with this criteria for a benefit level increase. And a lot of it stems from when Sharon from Para gave her presentation to the council. The one thing that really rung out for me was that utilizing that percentage of projected investment earnings toward the benefit level. And the reason why is because that kind of looks at, it stays on top of year-to-year funding, as in what the financial requirement is for the year, like with an increase, or even just where we're at with, bringing new members on, more members on. And so the important thing of that is that the fund and that financial requirement are figured independently of each other, and the financial requirement and then the reduction, for the investment earnings and the state aid money and like a voluntary municipal contribution, that's what dictates whether or not we have a required municipal contribution. And that's the area that we're trying so hard to stay out of. And I do have some data to back that up to, I went back and looked after she had said that, and I was like, oh yeah, there were years that we were, 105, 108% funded, and we still had a required municipal contribution. And then there were years that we were 90% or 85% funded for our funding ratio, and we didn't have a required municipal contribution. So we kind of wanted to both of those, like in the past, we'd always kind of been trying to set a funding ratio to target, of course, these are all projections, but, and that's why, we kind of want to wait till later in the year, late September, October, to get those cost analysis, because we feel like there's not time for the tables to turn then.
Breathe.
Chad,
Yes.
see your screen, I think I see your other screen, or we just see your desktop right now?
We see blue.
Yep.
You don't see this one right here?
Now
Okay, so you, so you have you can see the spreadsheet now.
Thank you.
Okay. So number one on that criteria was, no required municipal contribution. Number two, and this is like, we're just planning on receiving a cost analysis from Para. The one that's laid out, the example here is from the last cost analysis that we got from Sharon. And it basically, this one is in $200 per year increments. We can get those, our fund can only be increased in $100 per year increments, our benefit level. So anyway, so going back to that, those three criteria: number one, no required municipal contribution; number two, utilize the full amount of state aid plus 50 to 55% of our projected investment earnings toward that financial requirement for the year. And again, that financial requirement just being figured annually. Hey, how much did our liability increase over last year? That's basically what that is. Or how much will it increase if we increase our benefit level to, this, like say the $5,100. And then that target funding ratio is, totally figured. It's a total separate calculation. And of course, where are what's our assets versus our liabilities. So I think it's important to look at both of those. But to me, this would put more weight on that. How much is our financial requirement? How much is the cost of our fund need to increase between this year and next year? And then what do we project coming out of that increase, and where are we at from there? So so the department had, come up with this criteria for basing that at 50 to 55%. I put together a spreadsheet so it'd be really easy to calculate that, which is in the yellow boxes. And got a little bigger. And then target that funding ratio, in the 105 to 110% range. Any questions?
If I could say one more thing on that 50% ratio. What he's talking about is every year our investment grows, we have money that goes in. 50% is putting half of that money back into growing the fund. 50% would then be going towards that retirement benefit. So you're kind of evenly splitting between the members who are newer and going to be there for a number of years, and you're splitting it 50% with the members who have put in their 20, 25, 30 years, are looking to retire. So, and Sharon from Pura kind of keyed on that's really a stable, maybe more of a better indicator of how your fund is doing, more so than just the straight percent of our funding ratio. So as a board, we came department, we thought this was a very useful tool to easily see money that we need to pay out, money that's coming in, and seeing those ratios, and then putting those more than just one parameter on figuring out what our benefit level should be set at.
And on that note too, that like when we get these cost analysis from her, that does not include that the voluntary municipal contribution that comes in, which is right now in the $20,000 range, I think 22,000 per year. So that's kind of an extra padding that we have, which is why, one of the reasons why I felt better about going, saying, instead of just marking that at 50% or 55%, we've got that range there. We've got some cushion built in. So that $20,000 that we get for the voluntary municipal contribution would just like adding that to either of those green lines, the fire state aid or the investment earnings. And then what that ends up doing is it really ends up dropping that percentage of our investment earning that we're using down considerably. I think I had. Oh, yeah, so this is basically that, that scenario, that $5,100 scenario. And I just added $22,000 in that would, come out of that financial requirement. And then with our projected investment earnings, we'd only be using 36% of that.
And that 36% would be more towards paying out the retirement benefit. So you actually have a higher percentage going back into growing the fund. So because of that was a safe 55%. We were a very safe ratio.
Okay, does that conclude the presentation? We're pretty much we're done with that. Okay, so on the agenda.
Yeah, as long as, yeah, I'm just wondering if there's any questions. I guess, historically too, we've been trying to, well, in the past few years, because we can't take this increase until 2023, we've been trying to get down in that 120% range. And so the last 3 years, we were projecting 123, 127, 121. And what came out actual at the end of the year, we were at 126, 135, and 131. So last year was probably, probably the year we got the most aggressive to try to get down to that 120% mark. And we still ended up at 130. So, and part of that reason is because of that extra $22,000 that we have, from the volunteer municipal contribution.
Can you go back to that, Chad? That last slide?
That one there, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, questions? Other council members, questions, comments for the relief committee? Currently, what is it at, the benefit level? What is it at?
$4,100 a year.
41?
Yep.
That was that slide that Chad had up, I think. Can you go back again, Chad, and just leave it up for us?
That one's not in our.
No.
Oh, there we go.
So back in 2018, it was 3,200, and it went up to 34, and
There
then
we go.
36, and now 41.
And then how are we rating, how do we compare to other local jurisdictions? Can anybody do we have those figures just for?
Every department's different,
Right.
every fund is different, every liability level is different. It's really not comparing apples to apples to say a community our size. We have a lot of older members, we have a lot of liability. A younger department could have a much bigger balance and a very low liability and make twice as much as we do. So it is, you really have to look at it as a case by case. It's kind of a unique because of all the liability is figured in. So if we have one person retire in 23, our fund stays at that same ratio as if 30 people retired. Because all those liability, all of our years, our ages, everything's figured in. So if 30 people leave in 2023, our fund is still going to be at that same ratio as before they retire. Our fund obviously drops, but the funding ratio doesn't, and we don't become in an underfunded situation. So it really is hard to compare.
Jules, I'd like to make a comment, if that's all right.
Go ahead, Mayor.
So I am all for maximizing a benefit, but I get really nervous when we look at utilizing a projected investment, how long in the future is that projected investment? How far in the future are we looking at on that? I guess that would be my question.
The fund is based on a 6% projected return on investments. We went back, Chad has 25 years worth of data. We went back 25 years minus the 2-year window where we, the 2008 kind of the big crash. And when we switched our fund from one company to another, a lot of our bonds and different things weren't, we had to take them out early. So we took a giant hit. So taking those 2 years out, in 25 years, we have averaged 6% exactly. And we figure this fund as 6% return on investment. So looking forward, every year we figure on 6%. Looking back, we've averaged exactly 6% for the last 25 years.
Okay, so my question then still is, how far in the future do we have to look before we're not looking at a projected, because we're determining this every December 1st? Are we looking for the entire year, a projected number, or are we looking at a few months?
Chad, do you want to answer or do you want me to?
I got it. So this is for next year. So it would be projected out through the end of next year, because this would be our benefit level for, that would start in January. But it is just 1 year. So it gets it gets corrected at the end of the year, refigured. We'll see where we're at in July. We'll find out where we were at, for our benefit, our funding ratio and everything. Like that's when that actuarial is done by Para, and so we'll get the final results in July. So but this funding ratio, this investment earning is these cost analyses that Sharon does for us are done like that was like according to where the market was at in October. And so and that's where we were kind of like trying to stay later in the year rather than making this, in June or July. It's like we'd like to do it later in the year, September, October, so that we only have a couple months left before that new year comes.
Okay, so we're only projecting till January, but the benefit doesn't take effect till what would be 2023 or 2022?
No, so this benefit level increase would take effect in, it basically goes on the books in 2022. So because we haven't been with Para for 5 years yet, we're not vested in Para, so we're still at the $3,200 level. But so all these increases that we've been doing don't take effect for us until 2023.
So these numbers would go on the books for 22, and then July of next year, all these figures would be updated, current rate of return, and then for 23, it's projected. So it's analyzed every year. And that's where we're trying to put it in a simple form like this. I know I've had long presentations repeatedly. This then brings it down to just getting you the critical numbers in a very easy format to digest.
But and Tom, that's also where like in Sharon's presentation to the council, she had actually showed, I think she was like at a 48% dedicated to benefit level increase. And then she went through and said, how much would the market have to drop in order to have a required municipal contribution? And it would have been like 20%. It would have had to fall by 20% in order to be in that category of required municipal contribution. And again, that's not taken into account the voluntary municipal contribution. So so that would have had to been, I've numbers numbers and was thinking that it was gonna be in, it would have to have dropped by like 24 or 25% in order to have us be in that category of required municipal contribution. That's the one area we're trying to stay out of, just because we lose a 10% credit in all these figures, in that financial requirement figure, which, you know, would push us into that envelope easier. And that's what we want to try to stay away from. And that's where I think watching that portion of it, and putting a lot more weight on that, how much what is our financial requirement year over year versus what is our funding ratio. We still want to keep an eye on both of those. That's why that third criteria is still there for the targeted funding ratio. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does answer my question. I still get nervous when I look at projected earnings. I'm still remembering 2000 and 2008 where, you know, we got ourselves in a little bit of a bind. So I would be a lot more comfortable if it was not any projected earnings in that amount. And, you know, I guess what would be the difference if we said, okay, we're going to not do any projected investment? What's the real effect of that? Number one, on total fund balance, and number two, on actual individual taking a retirement. What would that really mean? I mean, we're looking 2 years down the road already, right?
Number one, that funding ratio is still projected also, and that's all based on investment earnings. Even that funding ratio is still, I mean, there's still, everything on this page is projections. And that's where, you know, we want to, that's why that, you know, keeping that, having that cushion there in both of those areas are going to make it easier, you know, to meet those. And then also, you know, and this is based at 6%, you know, so, and we've been outperforming that, or even when we are at 6%, our projected, you know, at the end of the year always comes out better than expected. Again, because we have more money coming into the fund than is calculated here. So there's already kind of some cushion built into the way things are calculated.
These numbers are prepared for us by Sharon on October 25th of this year. So they're current, what our current investment return on investment is. But there is a projection on what it will be at the end of the year to set the level for 2022. You can't set your benefit level after you find out what you have to have your benefit level set before January 1st of 22. And then go and set it. Has to be set before the end of the year, but these numbers are current as of 2 weeks ago.
I guess I'll just go back to, you know, this, what I'm hearing is you want to maximize benefits in the short term when you're saying projected benefit or projected investment earnings. And I get that because people want to retire with their maximum benefit, but I am still worried about, you know, a major correction. And I don't know, is anybody else worried about that?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
But-
Yes. I'm especially worried about it when you look at the historical data.
I mean, I'm fine with going down to a number closer to 100% in that 105 to 110% range, but yeah, I don't know who else remembers the Jesse checks, but they went out and then we had a deficit right after that. So as on a state level, it just seems like bad city policy to say, yeah, well, it's looking good. We're going to look in the future and say we're going to get what we've got, and then all of a sudden you're holding a bag and nothing's in it.
And that's
Well, and-
go ahead, Chad.
And I guess to Tom, that's where that, you know, using that financial requirement, we're still leaving 50% of of our projected investment earnings on the table. And we're still getting it. And that's, that's to try to keep this in check. I know, I remember 2001, 2002, we got in trouble then. 08, 09 was another one, or 9, 10. Board then, and we don't want to be in that situation again. And that's why we're trying to keep a watchful eye on it and put these checks into place to where, where we're not using everything we have to get, a complete maximum benefit level increase. We're trying to do this cautiously and to still get as much of an increase as we can for those retiring.
So what is the total fund balance right now? Can you tell me that?
To
2,368,000, is that correct?
Yep.
Oh, no, that's the liability.
It's 2 million.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. It's on this, it's on that cost analysis page. 2.3 million. Oh, current is going to be, yeah, current is less than that.
$2,339,400.
There you go.
And that's not cash in the bank. So that could go down without taking any of the liabilities out. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's what we were saying is like in Sharon's scenario, that would have to drop by 20% in order to put us into a deficit or into a spot where we would have and I don't even know that she looked at, that we'd have to be like under 100% funded. It was just the fact that it would put us into a required municipal contribution.
And I don't want to do that. Sorry, I'm not being a Scrooge, but.
Well, no, I'm saying that leaves that's a 20% cushion. That's actually more like a 25% cushion.
Well, and all I'm advocating is not using projected investment earnings, just what it is. So get closer to 100%, but not use projected earnings. That's what I would like to see, I guess. It just freaks me out saying, well, it looks good, but it might happen. That's just where I am. I'm sorry. And I'm just wondering if anybody else feels the same way as I do.
This is Tracy.
Yes.
It's actually dropped more than 20%, multiple years.
And overall, I think you're fine, but it just depends upon when you have the liabilities, coming due. Somebody retires. If that all happens when the market is down, then we're really in a bind. And you mentioned 2000, 2001, 2008, 2009. We're actually overdue right now for a correction. That's my concern.
I'm sorry, I lost my connection there for a minute. I didn't hear the end of that.
But the ending of that was, you mentioned 2000, 2001 with the dot-com bubble burst that took everything down a bit. And you mentioned 2008, 2009, 2010. We're now in 2021 and we're overdue for a pretty good sized correction, just on historical ups and downs. And when you combine the possibility of a correction with, multiple retirements, so you're actually realizing the liabilities, you end up getting yourself in kind of a double bind that's really hard to get out of. So not projecting takes a little bit out of there. I know you want to maximize the benefit and you think that we're too high, and we are if we're at 130%. But if we get down to that 100% without using projected, I suspect we're still a sizable increase.
There's the only way to do it though is to base it on projected earnings. And that's, you know, projecting an increase of 6%.
What, you can't use what the actual balance is now without using an additional amount of money in there? That's a 5% difference. Well, actually, you're saying 50% of the projected earnings. So it's not even that, it's a 2% difference. Or am I missing something?
So put just what our investment is at right now, not what our earnings are going to be year over year.
Right, because crystal balls are notoriously inaccurate and unreliable.
I share.
So we're at 4,100 right now, and if we don't use projected earnings, and we went to 110%, I'm thinking that we're somewhere in the 55 to 57, maybe $5,600 a year.
So you're basically saying that we're looking at, we're looking at this number right here and saying we're going to get nothing from our investment earnings.
Well, but you'll get what's been realized. I mean, the investment earnings.
So the green columns there, the green rows there are basically, I mean, that's this financial requirement at, you know, 145, 160, that's based on, that's looking at, that's a projection also. That's just a projection for, hey, what is our fund going to cost us next year? How much more is it going to be next year than it was this year? Like, how much does that liability increase? And it also adds in, that's also adding in like, how much what the cost of the fund is as far as like per firefighter and things like that. Well, and then we're saying, how much are we going to reduce that by the state aid that comes into it, by the, and by the investment earnings?
So are you saying that the projected fire state aid is going to change? Is that not pretty stable?
That is, yeah, that's pretty stable. And that's actually projected at a 3% increase.
Well, I guess I've had my question answered and I'm non-answer, so I'll go with what I think, and I guess so. I'd like to hear what the other counselors have to say.
Counselors?
I can look. So while I will need to abstain from voting on this, I am able to speak to this and would like to share my thoughts. We really don't know what the economy is going to do, and we definitely have a potential to have another year like 2008. It's currently not looking so good right now. You know, with what's going on, gas prices. And when I say we, I mean city council. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the 5,000 residents and taxpayers of the city, which if something happens, the market crashes, it would be 100% on the city residents only to take care of this. It wouldn't be your entire fire district and it wouldn't be your townships. You're just talking about 5,000 residents in the city of Princeton that would have to carry this. And we all have a responsibility to the younger firefighters to ensure that when they reach 20 years of service, there will still be funds for them as well. Unfortunately, this can't just be about, you know, those firefighters who are getting close to retirement. And we need to look at the whole big picture. And again, we really only have 4 years of history. 110% and under just feels too risky for the taxpayers. And when I sit in this chair, every single decision I've made since I took this seat has been thinking about every taxpayer in the city of Princeton. I guess with that being said, my opinion, and like I said, I can't vote, but my opinion is I would feel comfortable with a funding ratio of 113%. I stated it before when it came up, and I still feel comfortable with that right now. And a 50% state aid plus at 50%. I feel like these numbers would be a really good compromise for both of us. I feel like it's not overly risky. And what I'm going to ask you guys to please do is to please think about how much better you are off, how much better off you are compared to 4 years ago. 4 years ago, you were at $3,200 per year of service. And at the beginning of this fund, you were looking at about looks like it was about a $200 increase per year. At 113%, that would put you at about $5,000 per year of service, which would be almost $1,000 over last year and $1,800 over per year of service over 2018. Those are my thoughts.
Very good. Thank you, Counselor. Others?
The time I've been here, I guess, I mean, the number I've heard the most often and is safe is, the 115 to 120, but I guess I wouldn't have a problem with going down to the 113 either. I mean, and it is a healthy increase, and so yeah, I guess, but going any lower than than 113, I wouldn't be as comfortable with that.
I can go next year. I believe definitely in being fair. I believe in being fair, and since I've been on the council, the relief committee and has come before the council, and we've tried to be as fair as we can. So I take a little exception to when I ask a simple question about what's the benefit level of surrounding areas. I take a little exception to that I couldn't get a answer of what is Isani, what is Cambridge, what is Malacca. Whether or not you feel that's relevant or not, I believe it is. I definitely believe it is. And when we have a study for salaries that's coming up, you can bet that the company that's going to do the study is going to check to see what local departments, what local city hall staff make. So it was a simple question and you skirted the issue, and I resent that. I did not appreciate that. It was just answer the question is all I was asking. Okay. I want to be fair, and I want to give you what is applicable for this city to handle. And I agree with Councillor Garrett. We represent the people of this city, and if things go a little bad, they are the ones that are going to absorb the monetary damage that can happen. So I say that just to get that off my chest because I resented that. It's just a question I wanted there. In the past, we've come, I think since I've been on the council, I think it was at like 3,000 just a few years ago, and now it's at 4,100. Thank you for that. And if we bring that up to 113, 115, that would bring it up to about 5,000 or something like that. Am I right on that? So I think that is a comfortable level for the city to be at. It would be a 113, 115. And I'm relying on our city here, or people that have done the research on this to determine that and advise us, but we make our own decisions. And that's where I'm at. I'd like to see it with you, Counselor, with you, 113, 115, to be comfortable with. Just be comfortable with, because we don't know what's gonna happen. And I think that's fair. That's why I would like to know what others are getting. And I got a feeling that it's fair. So I can't make that decision if I don't know, and that's where I'm at. Thank you.
And I agree with the council and as well with the mayor. Projected is kind of scary, and we do have to provide a safety net for the members of this community, all of our citizens in this community, because I mean, we had problems at least 3 times that I'm aware of in the past. 01, 02, 2008, 9, 10, I believe 11 and 12 as well. 2011. So the numbers are out there, and that safety net was not there. And it was really hard. But also for you guys. It was very difficult. Those were very difficult years for us. So a 113 seems a little bit safer for our community. And for our firefighters. I mean, we honor you. You know, and I do agree with Jules about numbers. You know, whether their ages are different or whatever. I mean, it's kind of nice to have that template of what other people are doing as well for comparison. So that would have been, and maybe we can still get those.
I think we can.
Okay.
Any other comments from council, questions?
And I guess the hourly rate, I would not have an issue with, you know, I would like to see that brought up. You know, I think that should, in light of the recent wage increase in other fields, you know, I'd like to see what we can do to bring that up. That's the numbers there, you know, I think that would be a more easily controlled, you know, direct benefit that relates to your service. So,
Mayor, do you have anything else?
Well, it sounds like we have 2 questions that we want answered. What is the other local fire departments paying for their benefit? And my question was, what would these numbers look like if we take the projected out of the equation and stick with a percentage?
Okay, very good. I see that, moving on with this, that we have had the presentation. We appreciate it. We appreciate your service from the Fire Relief Committee. And part of this is for council. Tonight we might, just so everyone knows that there's no decision to be made. But our next phase of this, part of this, is to review the proposed policy language. If you remember at the last, I think it was September 2nd meeting, this was discussed, and it was pretty much, it was agreed upon that the city should look at it, maybe a policy relating to this, to the benefit level every year, and that's kind of where we're at now. So staff has put together a proposed policy for us to review, and we can talk about that next, if that's okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Reisner, that would be the intent of the item. And based on what I heard at the September 9th meeting, I attempted to craft some language. And it would obviously need to be massaged. And so if you have any input that you'd like to see, essentially the policy statement states that the city council shall annually review, oh, sorry. The city council shall annually review the para fire relief fund to determine if an increase in the benefit level may be made. The surplus will be divided at a minimum equally between the fund and the benefit level increase, except when the funding ratio drops. And I had in here below 115%, but I'm hearing verbally that there might be some consensus to drop that to 113. In those cases, the division of the surplus shall occur in a manner that the funding ratio is maintained at 113%. The final determination of the benefit level shall be made by December 1 of each calendar year. So that is kind of gets at the firefighters' discussion about making that determination fairly late in the year so that we're working with the most accurate funding projections, and there's only a short window between the fund balance amounts and when the benefit would essentially take place of January of the following year.
It'd be like a month or two gap, right?
About a month if we do it in January, so, or 6 weeks roughly, because Sharon North at Para is extremely quick at turning around all of these modelings. And so if we were to ask her mid-November, we could have something say at the study session in December, and then the council could formally approve any resolution if there was an increase to be determined at the first meeting in December, essentially. So, but that's just some proposed language for the council to consider. I'd be happy to have you wordsmith it, make any changes. It's our best stab at trying to put into words what we heard from the September 9th meeting.
And we came up with the 115 based off of past conversations I had with Steve and my comfort with the numbers. Steve told me that he felt comfortable in the 110 to 120 range. I don't like having a range because it's a lot easier to stand by a policy if they just have a number, which is why we came up with the 115. So obviously, based off of your decision.
So then this would, if we set this, what that would mean, then it would eliminate a lot of the frustration and the heartache and everything that these guys go through every year.
Right. I would hope that that would be the end result, yes.
And I think I concur with that we should do a policy so that it's just automatic. If a new council wants to come in and change the percentages or look at that thing, which they should look at, then can be done. But I like this idea, and I think we should have a policy. So I
And
guess,
then they'll know what it is every year.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's what you're looking for, is some direction on this, right?
Correct. If
And
there's,
so I would be in favor of that. Counselors,
Yes.
Okay.
I'm in favor of that.
Yeah.
pretty much. Mayor, I'm sure you are.
well, remember, we're not asking for a decision, we're just asking for direction. We
Yeah.
would bring this back at
That's
a
what I was
future
trying to give you.
meeting for actual formal action on it.
And that's what I was trying to give you, get consensus here.
I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, but how do we get the information from the other departments?
The mayor.
I'm sorry.
I was just trying to figure out what motion or what decision is getting determined right now. Are we waiting to find some more information, or are we trying to approve a policy at this point?
Mayor, right now we're talking about the policy yearly that we could have in place, and have staff continue to work on that and make a presentation to us.
Okay, so basically we're talking about tabling this until we get some more numbers filled in, or do you want to just plow ahead and approve this language? I mean,
Can jump in. If there's, I guess the first request that we'd like is if there's any wordsmithing in the policy. We're not asking you to make a decision this evening because it is a study session. But if you're, if the council is in general okay with the language of the proposed policy, and then I would suggest that we still answer your question, Counselor Zimmer's question about what other fire departments are doing. We could bring that all back as an update in the next, at either, probably not next week's meeting, but maybe at the end of the month. And then we would have you formally approve the policy at that time. So we still would follow up on your request for additional information, and then we would actually bring this language back for a formal approval at that time.
That sounds like it works for me.
That's what I was trying to say.
Sorry.
No.
All right, there's some crosstalk. I was having a hard time.
No, I'm okay with that, Michelle.
Okay.
And Michelle, or I mean, Vicky and
Yes.
Jenny, Jeff, Mayor, okay. Staff should have direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I could just say to the guys, you know, I know you wanted to be closer to 105 than 110%. I hope that if council does decide to go to 113, it's just 3% over what you were really, you know, your high number, what you were asking for. I hope you guys will be okay with that. Know that we love you guys. We appreciate what you do for our community. You know, all that stuff. You guys are like another family to me. But unfortunately, you know, we have to think about everybody in the whole city of Princeton and what could happen if things go bad. And so that's where kind of our decision making has to come from. If we could give you 100%, we would love to do that for you guys. It just isn't. It wouldn't be fair to the 5,000 residents of the city. Take that risk.
If I can just follow up with all that. So looking back at our past history, when I came on the department 23 years ago, we always looked at that funding ratio. We tried to get it to that 100% to give the most to the guys who are retiring. Looking back at it now, the department as a whole realizes that wasn't the right thing to do. Even though at everything we were aware of, we were doing the right thing. Recently, it really came to our attention about the 50% ratio. I've been on the relief board. I've been a part of these meetings every year until Sharon from PIRA really explained it to us. I don't think any of us have been aware of that. And that's the department's goal, is to, going underfunded not only hurts the city, forces a contribution above and beyond the voluntary contribution of the townships and the city. It hurts the fund, it hurts the future of our fire department. We lose that 10% credit. Our department goal isn't to get to 100%. It's to get the most for the people leaving, the most for the people staying. To answer your question, Jules, I wasn't trying to skirt your issue whatsoever. Doing a pay study for city employees from one city to another city is kind of apples to apples. Retirement wise, if you want just straight numbers of what they have, I have 4 or 5 departments locally. Cambridge is 5,200, Dalville's 1,500, Baldwin 3,500, Isani 5,500, Malacca 3,700, and Oakville 4,500. So there's a range. Even though communities can be similar, there's a drastic difference. I came on the department 23 years ago with a guy who he's much younger than me, and he has way less liability, even though we've served the exact amount of days in this department. So that's why it's hard to compare. So I apologize for if you took it as me skirting your issue. So I just wanted to make sure you understood we weren't comparing straight apples to apples.
I appreciate those figures. That helps. It's nice to know. It's nice to know what others are doing, and appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd like to say one other thing to the council. Some of you are way newer than way back when. Remember, we took a pay cut, $1 an hour pay cut with the market with that. I can't name any other employee who would take a pay cut to help out the city or their employer for that.
I did. I took a pay cut for 4 years, working at the University of Minnesota.
Yeah, we also cut all of our commissions and boards in half at a city level here and other cities. are not giving them any per diem or anything for any of their commissions. And we all had to do that. This whole state did that. That's when our LGA got cut, I believe, isn't it? When we got unfunded.
So I mean, we are, you know, we always have looked out for ourselves and for the betterment of the city, and our employees.
And I know, since I've been part of the council for the past 20 years, we've never had a pay increase, but we've had a pay reduction when that LGA hit the fan several years ago. So, yeah, we all took the heat there. Thank you very much. I mean, I think we all stuck together on that one. Thank you.
Very good. We can move on.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
gentlemen.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. All right, we finished 3.1. Let's look at the fire department budget. Ron.
You want me to start with personnel costs?
Sure,
As
I'm there now.
All right, as far as personnel costs, the increase in full-time salary is for the COLA and step. Part-time seasonal salaries, that's based off of the $1 an hour increase. And assuming a very modest increase in calls. And then fringe benefits is just percentage based off of how much you pay in salaries, so.
I have a
That's
question
the
already.
increase. Okay, go.
So looking at the full-time salary,
Mhm.
that is a 5.4% increase.
Yep,
Um,
because it's COLA and step.
But then when we get to the police department, that's only 3.3%.
Well, so the
Is that
difference,
because there wouldn't be a
because,
step?
right, it depends on who's at the top of their scale and who's not. So right now, Ron is not at the top of the scale,
Okay.
so he is entitled to a step and the COLA increase.
Okay.
Whereas people in, I don't want to name specific individuals, but in the police department, almost all of them are at the top of their scale.
No, that's,
Yeah.
that explained it, this, with the step in there, so,
So what's a police one, 3.3?
yeah, when we get to it, which is cost of living.
Right, yeah. Well, 2.5% is what the COLA increase is, and the rest is step.
Thank you.
Yep, and then like I said, the 120 for the part-time and seasonal salaries, that's assuming a $1 increase. And looking at one of the more called quarters, I use that as a projection for how many additional calls we'll have, because it's kind of a crapshoot, to be honest.
Plus, we have a few more firefighters now. Yep.
We have a couple that have gone since the beginning of the year too. So.
Thank you.
For the rest of the mayor and council, if you have any questions, we kind of adjusted it based off of what we've done last year and the year before, or this year and last year. So I think overall, I'm not sure, I'm sure you are aware of the 3% increase that the fire department has gotten every year. And that was agreed upon by the townships and whatnot. So I think we've stayed within that 3%. And we've adjusted a little bit here and there based off of what we've done in the past, this year and last year.
And just for my own information about, on the hourly salaries, about how much of that is calls versus training?
Currently, so when COVID hit us, we elected to do split trainings. We used to do the whole department every Tuesday night. To kind of protect the department, we split it into 2 trainings. Each group does the same training, which has helped with the budget as well. So they get 2 hours of training a night. They pay for each night they train. And then so they're required now to make 27 or 28 trainings a year to make their chief's certification for their retirement. So most of it's going to be calls because we have more calls than we have more trainings. I can't give you a percentage of what's what.
Oh, that's fine. I just wanted to get an idea for.
Most of it will be call volume,
Okay,
and right now we're on pace to set a record year.
okay, thank you.
Not want to hear that.
Hey, Ron,
Well-
the, like the ladder truck and that when we purchased that, that's not, that's CIP.
Well, CIP is still reflected in here under 1501 through 1510.
Yeah.
Oh, the
Those are
92?
capital.
I believe though, the ladder truck came out of the truck and
Truck
equipment
fund,
fund, the $1 million
Okay.
over 10-year fund, and I don't think that was CIP.
Right.
I just, okay, so that 92 is like, for the CIP.
90,
Or
yeah,
what?
92 is 23,000 for the UTV, although Ron has been successful and has now collected enough money for the actual UTV. It's new turnout gear for the new recruits. It's also radios, which is a rep reimbursable expense. And I also believe we have money in there for the sirens.
No, that would be
and
emergency
one.
management, foam, if we have.
Foam,
a
that-
big
that's-
fire,
that was the other
you know,
thing.
any deal like-
Okay.
Hoses,
So,
Yeah.
hoses come in here?
No,
Yes.
those are in the.
so out of that 92, like the UTV, the vehicle and stuff like, things like that, we can expect that not to be spending 92, but to be spending
Less.
less.
I
So
can
that
give you
helps
a-
us with the overall budget, right? Or-
I
That's
can
like
give
a
you an
revenue.
update.
Yes.
Yeah,
After
so this
years.
is one of these where if you can keep going, you're great asking for money.
I can give you a.
You and I have something. in common.
That's a good
Yeah.
catch.
I can give you an update.
So I mean, that's a good thing. I'm sorry. Yeah,
I can give you an unofficial update on the UTV CIP.
sure.
Currently, we've raised $18,000 in donations. I haven't seen the checks from 2 of them, but I was told this is what we're getting. So we have a total of 18,000. We did CIP for 23,000. That didn't include a trailer for the new one. The old trailer would not be strong enough or big enough to accommodate the new UTV. So figuring a trailer in, we're looking at 27 to 28,000. I have 18,000 in donations, so that CIP will probably drop from 23,000 to about 10,000.
And you plan on selling your current.
Correct. And next week you'll have a memo to sell what we have right now, which will go towards that purchase as well. So slowly getting it down.
And 10,000 of this number isn't it just in case we use the phone.
Yeah,
Right, and
Correct.
if we don't have a big need for foam and I don't use it, we don't need to purchase it.
Can you tell me why the general supplies went up $4,000?
I believe that was your hoses, right?
No, the hoses
Those didn't come out of.
are
the
gonna
same-
come out of the equipment fund, I believe, not the.
I might be able to help with that, Counselor Gerald. I think there was something that would have hit the CIP, which was not a CIP eligible expense, so that's why it got moved from the CIP, but I'd have to dig through my notes to find it, so I apologize. for
Actually, it went from like just under 3,000 to 2,000, 3,500 to 7,500.
Right.
It's not.
It was a CIP, a non-CIP item. I thought it was hoses, but
But if it isn't a CIP item, what is the dollar
it's
amount?
$2,500 per item. Or if it's a project, but it's specifically non-project.
That, some of that might be as well a rep item
Correct.
Right.
that we can use rep funds towards. So this being new to us, some of the rep funds are added into this department. And I think you'll see that in emergency management as well. I don't have a better answer for you.
well, maintenance and repair of 1154. I believe went up from 1,700 to 8,000.
No, that went down, Mrs. Counselor, from 28,000 to 25,000.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I can look more into general supplies, what it specifically it was.
So if it's relating to rep, shouldn't it be under disaster relocation expenditures?
This is new to me, so I don't quite have the. full-
So there are things that we discussed with Ron that he typically purchases that have been not necessarily specifically related to disaster relocation, but they are eligible under the fire department's budget for disaster relocation reimbursement. So when I do when I present to you on the 23rd, my revenue stream, you'll see the offsets or what we've determined to go in there. So for example, there's stipends for the public works director and the police chief that comes out of rep. So that's kind of a revenue stream in their department. There'll be some things in 4120 that will be directly, most of the rep budget is rep related expenses. So there's the revenue, but there's a few things that they've purchased before that have been used in the fire department that kind of have a dual purpose. And we've been able to, they've been able to be qualified for rep reimbursement. So and most of it's like a lot of flashlights and some other things.
Flashlights,
Maybe
or
that was.
traffic vest,
Correct.
high vis yellow jackets that I get for everybody every year,
Yeah.
that kind of.
So,
Thank you.
Other questions? We good? Okay, let's move on. Emergency management.
Mr. Mayor, acting mayor, council member. So I don't know if we changed a whole lot here, except for adding some stuff that's covered by rep as well. The the part-time salaries. You know, emergency management has gotten very busy, especially in the last 2 years. It's a growing department within our city. This has never changed, so the team I have that we work together is a great team. I think we've done so much for the city and helping them out, but I kind of wanted to raise their stipend a little bit because of the work that we've done together to ensure that we're as safe as we can be. So I put a small increase in there this year because it's never been raised, and the more work we are doing for emergency management. The maintenance and repair, 8,000, that's quite a jump. I'm not exactly sure why that.
Yeah, that's the one I was referring to earlier.
Oh,
Yeah, it was that one. I was on the second page already.
And I'm trying to remember what that was for, and my notes are escaping me, but again, this plus the travel, conferences, schools and training, that those expenses would be part of, again, disaster relocation, so those are going to be reimbursable expenses. I want to say that the 8,000 was because you needed some work done on the trailer. I don't remember exactly what we talked about, but I'm pretty sure that's where that ended up.
The other part of that 8,000 too is we have a contract for the other professional that's set up to the company that does our sirens twice a year. They inspect the batteries, the rotating, everything. So when the sirens go off, they work. If we need to purchase batteries or sirens or anything, that would come out of that maintenance and repair. And then part of the speed trailer came out of there for the maintenance and repair. And then our emergency management trailer, we do need to upgrade a few things in there as well. And some of that would be rep reimbursement. Like Michelle said, the 5,000 in training, schools and stuff, that's rep reimbursable. We increased the diesel fuel a little bit because of the cost going up. 48,000 is the 2 sirens we need to look at purchasing in the future for our city. That's a CIP item.
The council should note that as part of the economic development grant for the business park development, we did include sirens in that budget for, so hopefully, fingers crossed.
We included 50,000, so 25,000 for each side.
So fingers crossed we get that grant, so that'll offset that safety cost. $1 million something. Huh?
1.3 million.
Okay, well, I did say $1 million something.
You were very close there.
That was the match one.
Yes,
Okay.
it's like 1.36.
We all good with this?
Oh, I've got a question on the small tools and equipment. Are those exclusively used by emergency management, or are they go on a trailer, or what happens to those?
Most of them would be used by emergency management. We use that on our incident command trailer or our speed trailer.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Fire equipment reserve.
I think, I'm not sure what. This is just small equipment relating to your firefighters, correct, Ron?
Is this our equipment fund
Correct.
that gets that money?
Yep. So we just carried forward the 10,000 from this year to next year.
I can't answer why that was done. I think that was Mr. Jackson. I don't recall why we had 10,000 in there for this year.
So did we not use it?
We did.
We did use it?
So we're going to can't carry it over, right?
No, I'm just saying that we didn't change the amount from
Oh,
21 to 22.
I can look into how much we use, but I believe that's why I think keep it flat based off of our utilization of that.
Because that jumped up quite a bit from the previous year.
Yeah, and what did we buy?
I think it went down in 2020 because of the CARES money. And that's the reason why it went down. So really, I mean, 10,000 up from 77.52 for actual. And I'd have to look back, but I think Steve had previously budgeted 10,000 for that year as well.
Good. Okay, let's move on. Fire equipment grant.
This is zero because we haven't received any fire at grants at all.
I think we need to cut this a little bit more.
Yeah, this is probably the best
We
budget.
gotta
Jack
slash
on
some
here.
About 7%.
We gotta slash.
Yeah,
some.
no,
We
let's
Put it
keep
in
this
paper,
one.
we
This is
slashed
possible.
the fire department by 7/10.
So in
Here we
20
go,
in 2019, did we buy a truck?
2019.
Or no, it's general supply.
No, the 2019 grant was our new SCBA that we received from the Fire Act grant.
Okay.
Disaster relocation fund.
This is our rep fund or relocation fund that we have from the state that we participate with every year. It's still 93,000 as it was last year, but because we moved some of this money to other the fire department account and emergency management, that's why it looks like it's lower. This fund kind of jumps around a little bit because we don't know what we're gonna have for training in the beginning of the year. Keep in mind the state's year, fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th, so. We just got done with training. We will be making that payroll out to all the volunteers. They get paid for it, and police officers and firefighters. And then after that, we kind of know what we have left over to purchase portable radios for the police department and us, and whatever else purchases we can do that qualify for it. It also goes for half of the fire chief's salary as well.
Comments, questions? Okay, move on.
Fire truck reserve. that has a zero balance, but we do have $250,000 left over from the $1 million that we got 2 years ago from the townships in the city. So we have a little bit of bank there. If we have another truck that we need to purchase or one breaks down, we need to replace it. Right now, I'm just kind of steadying it away in case something happens.
So that might be
Doesn't that
just-
go on here then?
No, this is the budget, so it's showing your expenditures, it's not showing your carry forwards.
Okay, gotcha, okay.
So that money sits in a CD or?
Theoretically, it's in one of our CDs or it's in the bank. It is a part of our reserve.
That's
Somewhere.
projected.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
There, yeah. Yes.
Can you use that money for?
No.
No.
This one is specific.
Fast no run.
Or
I could see
So
Counselor Zimmer's.
I could
Little Mark Harper.
I would recommend that in January, I tell you some of our carry forward balances after I do some journal entries and
Okay.
reconciling. I can tell you what our carry forward balance is and how we have money that's earmarked to specific things. This is one of those. It's earmarked.
Okay,
It's in our reserves as a part of our big pot of money essentially, but it's earmarked for this.
yeah, okay. Yeah.
And that's kind of how all of our reserves are, including the CARE fund.
Where does the interest money go to then?
It gets allocated to each
It
department.
stays there.
Yeah, depending on how much money they have in their carry forward.
Okay.
I then have to do a allocation across all of the departments based off of whose money is what, as part of my audit reconciliations.
Wow, okay,
It's fun.
yeah, sounds that way.
It will be easier with the new software.
I sure hope so.
All right,
What?
Well, Ron just walked out. I'm like,
Dispatches.
was it something we said? Okay.
Well, he said when he left that he would be more than willing to give all the money to the public works.
Oh, right.
Can I have a motion?
Not council payroll?
I just texted him, I said, don't go away, man, just go away.
Did you?
I think there's a motion on the floor for money to go to public works.
Okay.
Transfer
So are
funds.
there any other fire questions?
Any other? No, thank you, Teresa, for getting us back on track. Anything else on fire? Okay, let's move to police. Chief.
Tracy, are you gonna take the
Do you want me to?
employment? Sure. You can take employee.
Full-time salaries. So what I did was I based it off of each individual police officer, their step increase if they have one, COLA, all of the above, and determined how much money, including if their step increase is in the middle of the year, I allocated exactly how many hours that would be to each place. So this is, I would bet my child on this, that this number is correct.
I've heard about that
Which
child.
child?
Yeah, what I was gonna say, what child are we talking about right
You
now?
have three of them.
Yeah,
Well, let's find out who our least favorite is.
right, no, any of them actually. So I guarantee that number is correct, with the exception of if we had any movement in our police officers or administrative staff in police, that would change things. But based off of our current staff, this is accurate. Overtime salaries is, I cannot state the same on that one. It's a bit of a shot in the dark, and Todd can probably shed more light onto why that is.
Yeah, obviously there's an increase, so. And I think Steve has probably said this, I think every year that he was here, it's a little bit tough to kind of figure out what exactly. Our overtime budget is when it comes to courts and so forth. You know. The courts overtime piece has been difficult to say the least. We still are paying overtime even though we're not going to courts, because now we're Zooming and now we're having phone calls to talk about court cases, so we're still getting that expense coming out. We do have a situation right now with an officer who's on leave. It's pretty open-ended right now. I'll be honest, we would love to have a end of tour date from para, but as of right now, we haven't received anything, so we also try to discuss like what happens if it reaches into next year, because we truly don't know, so.
So can you not we can't fill that position until we get an end date.
We're not allowed, we are not allowed to,
Make the assumption that that. person-
well, we're not allowed to open a position on the post board's website for a job until we actually have a date of retirement. Or end of
Letter.
tour, as they call it.
So do they, how long can they drag it out, or is
Well,
there?
they,
like a
you'll
time
love-
limit?
this is gonna make you super happy, because it made all of us super happy. They won't even look at it until all of the vacation and sick time has been used up. So we're still in that process right now of using that piece up before then the letter goes to para to say there's no more left, like, and then you have to now rule on it, so.
So do you know how much time of that is left?
I think we figured it out. We are one more time card.
Okay.
And so I know that Tracy and Karen and myself have, well,
We're in
Tracy and
the last
Karen have
week,
had better conversations because the sergeant and myself are not allowed to have those conversations. And so, yeah, one time card. So we're hoping to see something here pretty quick on the date,
So
which would help us
possibly
out
by the end
because.
of the year, maybe?
Well, we're hoping for, I mean, I actually have a eligibility list posted on the post board right now.
Okay.
Just to try to maybe speed the process up a little, because it's been difficult for the last couple months
Yeah.
too. I was mentioning to them, you know, we're at roughly, as of today, 400 and I'm sorry. Whoa. What's that? 490 hours is what we ultimately would need to cover in a shift. We've only had to cover 104 due to sergeant being super creative. But that 104, right now, if you take an average of overtime pay for the department, we're right about, you know, that 4,500, so to speak, for payout so far. We're looking at about another 70 to 80 hours if it goes through the year. So, hence the problem with the overtime piece.
But we did get $1,000 in our grant for some of your overtime. for around the festival.
Minuscule. That $1,000
You're
is
welcome.
minuscule in the amount of effort we put into the parade. But any amount will help. So I guess that's employee piece.
Yep, and fringe includes our contribution, our increase to healthcare, dental, and it's just a percentage based off of salaries as far as like Sarah.
14,000 more.
Yep.
Give or take a few.
Yep, 14,000.
Do you want me to move on?
Move on.
Okay. Looking down, just to kind of point out a couple of increases. So if you go down to, well, I'm gonna jump down to 1189, so that 11,200 for conference schools and trainings. That would be mostly directed towards the CIP piece, where it's not gonna be CIP, it's gonna go into a training budget for some training enhancements or aids that we need to get or want to get. And then also just a little bit of, we're keeping that in there because we have a couple officers, one especially that I talked to you before about is taking college courses for administration and so forth. So I needed to account for that as well within that piece. If you look at the data processing and office equipment, you know, it went up a little bit, and that's just the fact of trying to keep up with all the stuff that's going on with our IT world and firewalls and services and stuff like that. So So that section is any, I don't, is there any other on that one that you guys are?
I just have the conference school and training in here.
Okay, if you jump to the next one, the most significant one is the 1360, the police supplies.
Yeah.
So the result of that increase is also the CIP deal where it went into budget. There are two items that we are needing. One, I have to soundproof the conference room walls and the workout room. It sounds like super dumb, but right now the guys are working out and it's coming onto transcription in Kathy's office because it's just a hollow wall. So believe it or not, when I called around, I was surprised at how much it was. Well, Bob has offered up to perform the maintenance on it if we go to Menards and purchase the soundproofing stuff to do. So that's where it's coming in.
Okay.
That's the police supplies.
Yeah, we put it under police supplies, and then obviously the conference room, which is next to my office. I actually right now have to leave when they're interviewing people in the conference room because they pick up my phone conversations, and then I have to explain in court why I'm yelling at me. It's been
We
fun.
never thought of that when we built
No,
that
we
place?
never did. It never
Oh,
crossed
my
our mind.
word.
I kind of laughed at it.
Who was our engineer there? Like it all.
Fire department.
There you go.
One of the other items are, so we have some upgrades that need to be done on our rifles, and my officers that are handling the weapons piece of it are trained to do that. So instead of us sending them out to get done and paying a large fee, we actually are just gonna purchase the material and have them do it. And then the only other item on that increase was we'd like to buy a tracker. A GPS tracker for vehicles. Vehicles out here, which is good. So right now, the drug task force has a couple of them, but we've found that we're needing one for ourselves in different investigations that our detective is doing. So that was on the police supplies as well.
And that would go on the
Like a
vehicle?
GPS? They use it fishing?
It's-
Fishing?
What's
I have
that?
a
So-
little tracker that
You're
came with
getting
my
one
phone.
automatically.
It's a puck that we covertly with a search warrant put on there that they don't know is on there.
That's nice.
Don't you think they should equip all police cars with trackers?
No.
Well, I
it'd
already-
be
this is suspects.
Suspect trackers.
Not my cars.
Oh,
I already have it on my car.
Oh, okay, I'm not
Yeah.
like,
He's like, I put it on
confused.
Tracy.
So it's for the
Yeah.
No,
suspects.
suspect
Gotcha.
investigation.
If they don't have a car.
Then they're bike. CIP, I think we went over. Is that first sheet good for you guys?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
we're good.
Second sheet, animal control, the most favorite topic in my entire life, because you guys have heard this over and over again. Michelle, should I talk about this now or should I wait?
No, I would talk about
Okay.
your concern and what we run into.
So we have a
now.
problem.
We're
Houston,
outsourcing now, aren't we?
Houston, we have a
Yeah, that's
problem.
not the problem.
That's on the
Okay.
problem.
All
So
right.
here's what's going on. So we normally take in more cats than dogs in a year, a couple more. So it never really is over that 20 mark, really, to be honest with you. Well, so what is happening is rescues are not taking feral cats anymore. And so they deem them wild, and so they're not able to adopt them out. So the problem that we're having is that, and I talked to our animal control, and our new animal control, and he's been really good for us as far as trying to explain and figure out. So right now, if somebody calls us and says, I have a cat in my yard, I don't want it in my yard anymore. The city's always given us direction to, let's capture that cat. So we have a couple kennels or cages that we bring these cats, we capture them, and then we bring them to, at the time, the vet clinic, who would find a place to adopt, or sometimes these feral cats would go to farms and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, eventually they make their way back to their colony. So one cat for me right now, if it doesn't go, a feral cat, if it doesn't go to a home, it's gonna cost us a little over $200 a cat. And that's best case scenario. The problem we're having is that state statute requires us to, well, what they want, what they want is ideally is us to capture these feral cats, spray, neuter, rabies, and release. So we tried this a few years ago. Remember, this was the infamous city council meeting that people came in and you guys got beat up pretty hard because people were frustrated that we would capture a cat and then all of a sudden they would see it 3 or 4 days later, because that's what the state wants us to do. The reason for this is that the colony that forms on these feral cats, they won't let any other cats come in. And so if you spray and neuter all these cats, and if our community stops feeding them, the colony will eventually die out. It won't repopulate. And so in talking with animal control, right now, well, I take it back. I was gonna say we're the only one. Andover is, and us are the only 2 that he has, and he has over a dozen of them that are still taking cats. And Andover basically said, well, we can afford it, we'll just do it.
Who
So-
pays for the spaying and neutering?
We would have to.
We would, so right now, so a normal charge of 1 cat, so you have a $25 service charge, that covers us meeting them, animal control picking them up, so forth, scheduling this, it's called MinSnap.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have, it's a $15 a day charge. Now, the problem is right now, is that we have in the contract with them a 7-day contract, right? Where we have to post and keep for 7 days. So that's the worst it can be, but that's only for pets. A feral cat is not considered to be a pet. So he actually could charge us more. And right now they're anywhere from 14 to 20 days out for MinSnap to come here or to come to the animal control and do this. That's it. She says at least, but if you have a contract, you can get a few more days ahead of it. So, so ideally it's that 7 days, but it's not turning out to be that right now. And then, and that fee is $71 for that. So we're at that $200 mark. So I know it's a lot of, like, I just threw tons of stuff at you. I'm just looking for some guidance. What I would like to do is, to be honest with you, is stop taking cats.
Yeah.
Because the feral cats, you know, obviously there's an argument to get them sprayed and neutered. But here's the other piece to this is if we can get the public to catch the cats themselves, which is what's suggested of cities and
What happens in
townships,
Becker?
is that the Humane Society in St. Cloud actually charges less than MinSnap to do it. Like, so let's use Mr. Clayson, for example.
I was just gonna ask
He-
how many are. out
So
there.
we have a problem right now because we just cleaned up his property, so now the cats don't have anywhere to go. Well, because he feeds the cats, his colony that is located at his neighborhood is very healthy. He actually has been taking these cats and bringing them to St. Cloud and getting them sprayed or neutered and bringing them back. And he's only getting charged a couple dollars to do this. Because he believes in the program. So,
But he has to stop feeding them.
but the other part of this is he's got to let the circle of life occur. You know, some statistics right now is that on a stray, so a stray is considered to be, I own the cat, I let it just roam around my yard. Well, we all know that they don't roam around a yard, they venture out. Problem we have with strays is that, and this is a statistic that the animal control had, less than 2% of the strays ever go back to their home when they're captured. And the reason for it is because people never know they're gone. Because they just know, oh, they'll just come back. Or they said, oh, must have got hit by a car. Or, oh, the raccoon or the eagle or something took it.
Yeah.
So the problem is if we take a stray and catch it, it's never getting back to the home anyways because people aren't claiming them. So I'm still paying that large fee. You know, if you look at the ordinance, I'll be honest with you, it's meant for dogs. It's not meant for cats. So I'm looking for guidance, I guess. You know, the budget we have now, I think is, but if we have 20 cats that we have to impound and we're paying $200 a cat, we're gonna blow through that budget and we haven't even talked about dogs. So I would prefer not to raise the budget and I would prefer not to
I
capture
don't know,
cats.
not collecting cats anymore.
The problem is I will tell you right now, there's a number of community members that will be here. They will not be happy about this,
Oh, if we don't collect them, right?
but I would be more than happy to give
We
them
borrowed traps.
our
haven't
trap
we?
to them. Yeah, I would love to give them our trap
Yeah,
and we give them guidance on where to go.
yeah.
That's
That'd
ideally.
be
what
like
should-
St. Club.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's.
I think that's, yeah. I
I
know
will-
mid snap
I
is a
will
great.
tell you that having managed the animal control contract for the county before I came here, I feel Todd's pain because the county did not collect cats. And of course, the county has broader services and we would have the occasional hoarder of cats, which ended up in a family services situation, and then it would be like the attorney's office and the victim coordinator's office are looking at me like, well, I'm sorry, but we don't do cats. We can't do cats for exactly the reason now. You know, there are some county residents that participate in the SNAP program where they would like capture and then take them in, and you know, that seems to work, but and obviously theoretically rules are a little different in the
You know,
rural part of the community too.
and the other problem that we've experienced, and this has actually happened, is I'll be honest with you, I don't know how to tell a feral between a stray.
Mhm.
Like, and how they've explained it to me is that the ferals actually are cleaner than the stray cats because they're in a colony and they maintain that healthiness from a look standpoint. Where you get into telling the difference is whether they're like pettable or touchable, those kind of things. Well, I will tell you, we're not gonna go pet the cat.
No, I've got
Like,
my
that's not gonna happen. My guys are not gonna do that. So the problem is that if we think it's a stray
Mhm.
and we capture it, we'll bring it to Councilmember Zimmer's house.
There you
And
go.
he'll go, oh, nice kitty, and it'll bite him, and then we have a cat bite. No, it'll go there, and then the problem is it's gonna sit at animal control, and then they're gonna rule the you know, like MinSnap or the pet rescue is gonna say, well, this is feral, we're not taking it, and then here's the problem, he gets stuck with the feral. And then we lose places at his.
Yeah.
You know, we have nowhere to put it, and then he ends up having to put it down. And then we have a person that calls us after it gets put down and says, you know, I'm looking for my cat, and, oh, sorry, we just put it down. Like, that's happened to us.
I mean, I like the idea of the spaying and neutering to stop the cycle, but
Who's paying?
It's
I
still
don't know that
expensive.
we can afford to pay for it.
I mean,
you
and
know? I
we
mean, there's a
still would
lady
like.
that lives across from the Kaylee house that has 19 cats, like running around.
We have three problem areas within our community, and all three problem areas, they feed the cats.
Yeah.
That is the number one issue, and there's no law against that. So that's what every city's battling right now. It's more of the educational piece.
Well, there's a law against 19 cats.
Well, you've had it.
Well, but the problem is I'm gonna lose it in court,
Yeah,
because the person's gonna I'm gonna take them to court because they have more than 3 animals, and they're gonna say, well, how prove that that's my cat?
Yeah.
Like, so that's the problem. We've already tried this route. And then the judge tells us to get out of the court because how dare we go in front of us for a cat issue?
Mhm.
You know, so it's kind of a you know, we're gonna still, like, if there's an injured cat or, you know, there's a need for services, we're gonna still take care of it. Remember, in our contract, if we, you know, have a motor vehicle accident and the operator dies or is, you know, deceased within that crash, and we have a dog and a cat in the car, we still have a contract with animal control where they'll take that. You know, so we do have those means to do those variables, so to speak.
And we'll still have the dog piece in there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So now, if we were to decide to stop taking cats, do we need to clean up that ordinance a little bit better to actually say that?
Well, right now, we don't have a cat ordinance, but I have animal control sending me a couple ordinances that basically say that, so that I would agree, yes, we're gonna have to clean that up at some point.
The county,
But right now, we don't have an obligation to take cats. We've just always been told, you're gonna take cats. Because that's what we want in the city.
yeah, the county's ordinance specifically relates to dogs and
Yep.
specifically says dogs everywhere.
Okay, so that's what we gotta do, make sure our language says the same thing in our ordinance.
So we'll have to
Yeah,
fix it.
And
And then
it's
it'll-
completely run by volunteers and it's a huge Facebook push like all the time. And she gets all the money donated from the community.
mhm.
So they're still paying for it and it's still happening.
Well, and we still have means, like, Rough Start Rescue does a phenomenal job. But unfortunately, they're in the same boat, right? They can't take a feral cat.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, if it's feral, we truly just want to leave it. But we also want to try to get it sprayed and neutered, but it's cheaper for a homeowner to do that than us.
And that's what they're doing. But there's just saying they're all of them and then
Spayed
returning
and
them.
neutered.
Yeah.
Spayed and neutered,
Hey,
Well, I just know that Men's Snap.
What did I say?
When it
Sprayed.
started coming to prison.
same thing. Everybody gets it.
Everybody gets it. Yeah, so anyway, Men's Snap used to come to the teen center, I used to have them set up shop there. I mean, for several years, they were operating out of, having their operating theater there and had all the pets in there during the day and the students would come and it was a great experience. They actually let the kids job shadow. They wanted to be veterinarians and I'm telling you, that operating theater in the back of that truck, spotless. I mean, seriously, it was one of the cleanest things I've ever seen for the work that they do. They toured me, my kids got to go in there all the time, it was just wonderful. But you can't afford it. Great resource, but
Okay, chief, you got direction?
I'm
Okay.
hearing,
No,
Okay.
we can't do it tonight.
no, but I'm hearing the consensus is that in order to keep our animal control budget under control, that we will, at the first of the year, at some point, and we'll probably have to do a formal motion, just to keep it clean, but I'm hearing that the desire of the council is that we do not take cats.
That's my feeling there.
So that was animal control.
A lot of it is the feeling there, you're dealing with public relations then. at that point.
Yeah.
So,
It'll be fun.
it'll be fun.
sorry, Todd.
Property confiscation kind of is what it is. Next page is the public safety programs. I think this, is that 5,000?
Correct, this
Public
is
safety
your,
like
this
that.
is your public, this is shop for your cop,
Yeah.
shop with the cop, public safety day. Night to night,
Yeah.
and
Usually offset by.
usually
donation.
offset by donations, but we have to budget for it because donations are not guaranteed. Even though
Yep.
they're great at raising money.
And then the last page is, I believe this would be the fee that we pay Sherburne for DTF, buy money.
Yeah.
Confiscation.
Yeah, although I don't, in our conversation, I don't think you've actually used it in the past years, or did that change?
I'm still waiting for an
You're
invoice.
still waiting for an invoice, so we've just,
Set aside in case they
correct.
ask.
In case
Yeah,
they
and
ask.
actually, I
It
think,
did in 2020, but not 2021.
and there's a related account that is the info buy
Yeah.
fund, which
Mhm.
I have a note on my budget things that we just close that one and just use
Right.
this one, so,
Mhm.
so that fund will go away.
Yeah, there's,
That other
it's that.
fund.
As part of our audit, they want us to close the funds that we're not actively using.
So,
Do you guys have any questions? Otherwise, I mean, I'm good.
Council have questions,
No,
comments?
We've all been answered.
Okay, let's move on to the
last item,
last item. Well,
Number 7, right?
we can keep going, we're on a roll.
Well, we're not doing the uniform one. tonight.
no, we're not
That's
doing
just-
it together.
Okay.
Still got a billion questions about
Land
it. Not yet.
exchange. Michelle?
That's interesting.
Correct, so, all right, so this is, So Mr. Drews has purchased a parcel of land. On the cover memo, you can see it's outlined in blue. In the comprehensive plan, and my conversations with Stephanie and Bob, there's actually somewhere out there an actual illustration of a roundabout at Highway 95. And so we've been attempting to work with Mr. Drews in terms of trying to preserve right of way from 13th across to 95 roundabout. He of course called MnDOT, and MnDOT doesn't have a clue that it's been even talked about, but as Bob pointed out in our meeting, there's multiple different districts, and depending upon who we talk to, they may or may not have known that this was kind of a concept. So Bob and I met with Mr. Drews, and actually Bob came up with the suggestion that maybe we do a land swap. And so that's the next illustration. Stephanie, if you can slide that up. The thought would be to swap the area in red, which would preserve the right of way for the future, with the two parcels that the city owns to the east of Mr. Drews's property. It's not an exact swap. We would actually gain more land than we're giving up. Discussed possibly the city looking at taking on the plating. I did a little zoning analysis, and absent some right of way, we could clean up the right of way along West Branch Street at the same time. That he could potentially, with some variances, get maybe up to 3 building sites. And then at the end of the conversation, he asked if we would forgive the assessments on property. So we did not promise him anything. We just said we would bring it to the council to see what your temperature was, if you would be interested in us continuing conversations. Provide us some directions. Otherwise, if we're not, I guess, not interested in pursuing this, we would, Mr. Drews would likely come in the spring for a building permit on the property. So just
And
looking
that's
for,
all buildable, and the parcels he wants to trade, those are buildable. too, aren't
well, the
they?
parcels that we're suggesting we trade are buildable. They're flat and good ground. In fact, I think there's some new construction to the east,
just to the east of it.
to the east of it. So
They went in last year.
Yeah,
so
I remember when this was talked about years
years
ago.
ago. That was before the other two roundabouts.
This was 3 engineers ago.
Yeah, I remember this because it affects the road that we live on, because the ramp at the one end is way too steep and MnDOT won't plow it or do anything. They don't even want to recognize it. So they were gonna dead end it where the old Moose Lodge
Yeah.
used to be.
We
They
told
were
them
gonna
no.
dead end it, and then this was gonna come out and connect with
13.
13th. And the
Where-
people on 13th were upset that there was gonna be more traffic on there
Well, they were gonna shut off West Branch Street
and shut off West Branch.
from
as well.
95 West Branch. and-
Yeah, yeah,
And
they were
the
gonna do
people
that.
on 13th Avenue.
Yep.
So we'd only be able to use
We're
that
here.
roundabout.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
You
There's a
still-
lot of people out
you
there.
still have to drive by 13th to get anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so
But
if
not
we
down,
don't,
but not down.
if we don't do this and this guy develops it, then we're stuck.
Mhm.
Well, technically, you're not entirely stuck. It just means that if you were to use the power of eminent domain, it would cost you a heck of a lot more money in the future.
Right.
So, I mean, it seems like now would be, I mean, he seemed very open and willing to
He
our
seems
conversation.
He wants to see development in the community, and he's willing to work with the city to see that happen.
Correct.
So what we would be out would be the assessment.
Well, we have not negotiated anything
Oh.
with Mr. Drews. I mean, potentially you would be out, at the high end, you would be out the planning costs plus the assessments, but that's not to say that we couldn't come to some other agreement where we split the assessments or we do something else. I just put out the potential high end of the cost, so.
So we'd be out like 22,000. So
In round numbers roughly,
Yeah.
which I don't know what lots you're going for in this community, but it might be a bargain.
and the lot you want to
Looking
trade
at-
is buildable, right?
Uh,
21,700.
Is there any advantage for us to keep our own lots? What's the advantage?
Those two little ones.
Yeah, is there any advantage to the city?
I don't see any either.
Nothing? I think we talked about parks, one time, but it wasn't a very good idea.
It's both, you're sandwiched in between a busy road and a highway.
Yeah, okay. But it's advantageous to have the other property in case future accesses and water lines are made, so my opinion then would be that we should move in that direction and negotiate. That's fine.
Well, if he's gonna build on those properties we're trading, I mean, I'll put it right back on the tax rolls and it'll be, you know.
Yeah,
That was
you're
my
talking about
thought,
the two that we
that'll
own.
Mhm.
Correct. You're essentially, you'll actually end up putting, I mean, the area that we're looking to acquire through this land exchange is actually about 7,000 square feet larger than the two parcels that we own. But there is the development potential for up to, again, with the variance, there's enough land area for 2 building sites and potentially a third. It's just a little shy of meeting the zoning requirements for a third buildable lot.
Yeah.
So,
Can we use if we made the swap? In the meantime, can we use that for anything? Like Bob, like storing
Cemetery.
salt? Yeah. Or a
Storing.
I'd say
Yeah.
Joel, you don't want to put anything on that property, the neighbors around would be furious.
Yeah, I'm just
Are you
thinking.
kidding? No.
maybe use it
stop
for
thinking.
snow storage.
Talked
I
about
live
like
there,
salt
stop thinking.
storage.
There's no salt going at the end of my driveway.
Okay,
here.
sorry you brought it up. But
Yeah.
I'll roll you in the parking lot.
It's milkweeds. It's got monarch butterfly
That
habitat.
tree's there, it's nice. There's actually a
I'm
trail.
just trying to discuss
A lot
here.
of sandwork.
Yeah.
There's a trail, however.
Well, anyway, I think it's more of an advantage for the city to have that piece of property than the other 2 lots. And it helps them, like Vicky just said, for developing.
Mhm. Yeah, get us back on the
So
tax roll.
we'll convene another meeting with Mr. Drews.
Well,
Although he could build on
What
this
she's
one.
saying
too.
though is the 2 lots that will get back on the tax rolls, the piece that
west
we're getting is gonna come off the tax roll.
Yeah,
So that's
but
not gonna benefit.
I would rather not have a house right there at the end of that street. Oh, nice big home, you know, yeah, let's put them over here.
It's more.
And just leave that open, because.
I'm just saying for tax rolls.
Yeah.
You know, that it's not-
Okay.
Yeah, but if you put houses on there, raw land is cheaper tax wise than with houses. So it might be the same.
Okay, so
According to MinDOT, MinDOT, this isn't in their plans, but it is a
It was ours.
possibility.
Correct, it's in, I'm gonna look to, it's in their comprehensive
Yeah.
plan. And it'll likely end up in the transportation plan that we do. I mean, I think, you know, I would agree, I don't have the experience with the road on the north side, but I come out quite often on the south side, and I would concur that it's a relatively scary proposition, especially if you're going to try to go to the highway. There's not a lot of distance. You've got an off ramp and the exit into the Moose Lodge area. I think that, unfortunately, MnDOT likes to use warrants, which usually means that somebody's got to get killed or several people have to get killed at an intersection before they're going to look at any modifications, but at least we've preserved the potential and we have more flexibility if we reserve that space for trans.
Yeah, getting that road to the west of there, that's just, it's a 30-mile-an-hour zone, but everybody does 45 in there.
Well, and I know that a lot of, I would state that a lot of racers, a lot of large vehicles come in into the fairgrounds. I know during Fair Week, that's the end of the fairgrounds where people are bringing in horse trailers, cow trailers,
Oh, yes.
et cetera. I think a traffic improvement would in the future go a long way to improving public safety.
I also
I
think
agree.
looking long-term, that corner where the Moose Lodge is a prime development spot for commercial, a large commercial.
So we want to do something.
So we want to make sure there's space for them to have a crossing further down versus right where it is right now. It's just not. gonna
So
work.
do you need a consensus to move? Is that direction enough? or-
Yeah, I mean, the discussion seems to be in the positive, and we'll come back obviously with a more formal approval once we've negotiated some type of agreement with Mr. Cruz.
So how long has he owned this property?
He just purchased it this year.
Okay, so the assessments, are they from West Birch?
Yes, and I'd have to go back to see how long the assessments have been placed on it, but I'm going to presume that that is correct.
Okay.
Is the red area enough area if we're to put in a roundabout there, or?
Roundabout with it, from, off of memory that I viewed from WSB. The roundabout. That would be the red coming off of it.
Okay,
Yeah, it'd be
So
the
make it
access
into
point.
a cross intersection.
okay. Great.
Yeah, when MinDOT came through and wanted to shut down their other road, I'm like, no, that emergency, vehicles, you needed access,
Okay,
All right, we're good.
Okay,
I'm good. We'll proceed forward with some sort of discussion with Mr. Cruz.
Good. So be it.
Thanks for thinking.
Look for a motion to adjourn here.
so moved.
Okay, motion to adjourn second. All in favor?
Aye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.